everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And we're really excited today because we have a director of a really special film that we're talking with Rudy Mancuso today, who's the director of Musica. And Rudy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me, and thank you for the lovely reaction to the film, by the way.
Yes, I know I was saying that I don't get starstruck easy, but I feel a little today because I really loved your movie. So.
That's really, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, so your first time on the podcast. So why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about how you got started and what your path was to getting to the point where you could make this film.
Absolutely. My name is Rudy Mancuso. I'm the director, uh, co-writer, and composer of Musica. It's been an idea that's been percolating for a long time. It's loosely based on my life and my experience. Not so loosely, though. It's actually pretty accurate. And honestly, 90% of
Uh-huh.
what the film is authentic to my experience. And yes, it's been quite a journey. I had the idea to tell this particular story and explore this perspective of synesthesia and unique relationship with sound and music and the Brazilian American experience for many years. And
Hmm.
although it took a bit to actualize,
Yeah.
I got to do all those things in this film.
Did you start out being more interested in music or more interested in film?
I'd say music was the gateway to video production and film, but music. I think my mother tells me that when I was about 5, I walked over to a piano and I felt very at home and it started making sense. So
Hmm.
music was the first love, and then that slowly progressed into a passion for video production and filmmaking.
Yeah. So did you always have the synesthesia? I don't know. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, you
Synesthesia.
are.
Yeah. Yeah. Was that something or did that kind of come later?
I I think I've had it for as long as I can remember. I've had
Hmm.
a relationship with to sound. I had my senses overall always felt kind of heightened. I just didn't know how to diagnose it or
Yeah.
articulate it until I was a bit older. So I think I was a bit too late in my life when I realized there's a name for this thing and there's a
Hmm.
community of people who have it.
Yeah. Was that a challenge in like school and stuff like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As you saw in the film, I I was not very academically inclined. I failed a lot of classes. I barely made it through high school, and I didn't make it past 2 years in college.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I connected with it because I have some dyslexia
Mhm.
and I always felt like I mean it was pretty mild, manageable. But I did feel like sometimes that I saw through a different lens than
Mhm.
certainly than my siblings, that's for sure.
Yeah, and even with something like that, it's like that's really, I think, a big message in the trying to convey in the film is to embrace your differences
Yeah.
rather than treat them like a disease or a hindrance,
Right.
especially in a time when we want to when it, we're becoming more self-aware and we're prioritizing mental health. And
Hmm.
I don't know, there's good and bad side to that. Uh, Embrace your differences.
Yeah.
They might be a superpower.
Right. Yeah. So did you actually live in Brazil or
Um, I didn't live in Brazil for a very extended period of time, but I would growing up, I was for like a quarter of the year I was in Brazil, sometimes half of the year, every year.
uh-huh.
So although I was never there for longer than maybe like 6 months at a time. Um, I was frequenting specifically Rio, um, a few times a year for many months. So there was
Yeah.
definitely a duality of cultures growing up.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So then you start doing the vines and
Mhm.
like what was that whole process like? Kind of being a
Um,
creator and
yeah,
everything.
a buddy of mine in college told me about this app where you you tell stories in 6 seconds and they loop, and I found that super intriguing.
Uh-huh.
actually for music because of the nature of the loop. And I really like it. It was there wasn't much strategy. I got on there, started filming these short musical loops, and piano videos, and some silly stuff that I would do with my mom, and some characters, and eventually a puppet show. And
Yeah.
they just started resonating with people. And before I knew it, the follower count started going up, and it was a very like passionate, loyal, and niche community of people that loved Vine.
Uh-huh.
Because there was really nothing
Yeah.
like it before TikTok.
Yeah. When I mentioned on Twitter that I really enjoyed the Musica, they were like, "Oh, you got it! This guy's vines were amazing." People love it.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a really a really passionate fan base, and
Hmm.
that's where everything started for me. You know, I always knew I wanted to make films and make music
Yeah.
and make music for my films, and Vine was just an incredible accidental entryway into the world of
Hmm.
creating.
Ho, ho, ho! We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind the scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
Did you have particular musical artists that inspired you that you loved?
Yeah, there. I think the list is it's a bit
Unending.
all over the place, an
Yeah.
eclectic list. But, yeah, I mean, I'd say everyone from like Antonio Carlos Jobim, a classic Brazilian composer and writer. He's the grandfather of bossa nova.
Uh-huh.
Um, to a lot of film composers I was in love with,
Yeah.
like you know Hans Zimmer, John Williams, Benjamin Wallfish, John Debney, and um, Harry Gregson Williams, Trent Reznor, amongst
Oh,
others.
yeah.
I, I was more, I think, inspired by film music than I was any other musical artist.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, so you did this whole Keys of Christmas. Of course, Hallmarkies were big fans of Christmas, everything Christmas. How did that all come about? And do you think we could ever get a Musica holiday edition?
Good question. I can't ever say no to anything like that. There's definitely that door is open, and
Yeah.
there's that
I think it
possibility.
would be really fun. Like, because they're all the
I love
holiday
how
songs.
it's true. If not a direct continuation of Musica, maybe something, I could hint at something coming with the puppets.
Ah,
Um,
yes.
and, uh, and I think the puppets lends itself to the holiday spirit very
Yeah.
much. But
Yeah.
these Creeds of Christmas kind of erupted organically. I was creating a lot on YouTube, and I had a great relationship with the platform, and they were starting to get into their own original features, Keys of Christmas being at the forefront of that.
Uh-huh.
Um, they brought in Dave Meyers, who's a big music video director, and he actually just did that J-Lo film for Amazon. And they brought in me, a number of other creators, some of our fellow celebrity friends like Mike Tyson,
Uh-huh.
and Mariah
Mariah
Carey.
Carey.
And
Yeah.
before we knew it, it was kind of like a feature version of various music video vignettes.
Yeah.
And I said, sounds like a blast. I even put
Yeah.
Diego in.
I mean, anytime you get Mariah Carey, she's the queen of Christmas.
Exactly. So I feel lucky that I got to have that experience. It was just
Yeah.
more fuel for me as a filmmaker.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So how were you able to get this Musica off the ground and all the pieces, especially this movie with musical sequences and just so many things going on? How did you make it all happen?
Wasn't easy.
Yeah, I
Uh,
bet.
but you know, years of thinking about the material and preparing the material and then months of rehearsing certainly helped. Um, but I had a vision for the musical set pieces pretty early on.
Uh-huh.
There was a big pandemic in between
Right.
during the development of this film. So there was a year and a half where I had nothing but this material. So I had enough time to really think about it, really conceive the pieces, start writing all the music. I'd say like 90% of the music was written and the set pieces were conceived before the script was even fleshed out, before the story was even finished.
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I had a vision in my head. I'm an editor, I'm a composer. That's kind of the beauty of wearing all these hats
Yeah.
is that you can cover all bases and really see the film before you start shooting it. I shot a short, basically a makeshift version of the opening scene of the film of the diner,
Yeah.
myself, just to get it, just to with my own team, my own low budget crew, just to get a sense of what it would feel like and how we would do the editorial style.
Mm-hmm.
So all those things really helped. You know, I was really annoyed at how long everything took, but in retrospect,
Yeah.
I'm really grateful because it gave me all this time to plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Were you worried that, okay, is it going to go too far? Like the puppets and some of the other elements? Like, or did you just go for it?
I wasn't worried about that at
Yeah.
all. In fact, it could have gone a little further.
Yeah. What was that all like, particularly doing the filming in the subway? Uh, that must have been challenging.
Yeah, well, it was an actual subway station
Yeah.
in New Jersey, which has its set of challenges because of sound, commuters, but we were able to shut it down for the few hours that we shot those scenes. So yes, there were still uh, trains coming to path trains coming in and out. So we shoot around that, but at least we didn't have tons of commuters and
Uh-uh.
all that stuff. The commuters
Yeah.
that in the film are our actors. So less challenging than I thought. You just have to work around the sound of the trains
Yeah.
coming in. Anytime that a train's coming, you have to stop and you
Hmm.
have you have a few minutes to roll.
So did you know Camilla before this film, or did you?
Nope. And on the project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just met through casting?
Well, I obviously knew of her. I don't even think she knew of me. She's way
Hmm.
too big time for me. Um, but she was quite possibly the most fitting person for this role, for this job. She came on not only as an actor but as a producer,
Oh,
and
nice.
you know, we're looking for a Brazilian American who could speak both Portuguese and English, who had this charm, who had this groundedness, who was an established actor. She ticked every box and more. So yeah, our teams connected us and we met about the project. You know, she read the
Hmm.
script, saw the sizzle, and we met and we just had a conversation like we're having right now,
Yeah.
for a good hour where I tried to describe the vision. I explained synesthesia. I told her we have an opportunity to, and this is, I think, the part that excited her the most. We have an opportunity to shine light on Brazilian culture in mainstream film, which is very rarely done. It's a very
Yeah.
under culture. So it resonated with her immediately, and she shortly after came on board, and we had
Hmm.
a lot more conversations. She
Yeah.
helped watch the script, she helped layer the character, but we didn't meet until day one of filming.
Oh, wow. Well, you clearly got along well.
A little too well.
Yeah. The chemistry, I was great. I really completely bought it. So, and
Well,
sometimes it
I
doesn't
hope so with
translate as
you.
well as you think. A
Mhm.
couple in real life doesn't necessarily translate that well, but
Right.
it did. It did.
Yeah, it's true. I think obviously, especially with the romantic aspect of the film,
Yeah.
chemistry with your actors is everything. And I was worried at first because I never met this person.
Right.
I'm not a trained actor, it's my first, actually technically my first feature debut. Before this, I just done my own short form content.
Yeah.
So you never know. Got really lucky that the minute we met, there was a familiarity, there was an ease,
Yeah.
and I hope that translated on
Yeah.
screen.
I think it did.
Embark on a delightful journey with the Romance of Rings series by award-winning author Esther Hatch. Discover a world where sweet historical romance meets laugh-out-loud comedy. The first book, Manor for Sale, Baron Included, is free on Kindle from April 25th to 29th. Grab it so you can enjoy Lord Farnsworth's bumbling attempts at wooing the wealthy new owner of his mother's estate. Don't miss the newest release in the series, There Goes the Groom, which is already being hailed as a new favorite Esther Hatch novel. Find out more on this and all of Esther's books at estherhatch.com. That's ESTHERHATCH.com, or use the affiliate link below.
So when you worked in some animation into the movie, and so what was that like, kind of getting that done and getting that integrated?
Um, yeah, there are a few animated moments. There's in particular that one montage in the third act where it's like the cycle of life, or
Yeah.
we're following Rudy rhythmically go day by day, uh, as he's um, facing forward to the screen, his backgrounds change.
Hmm.
That was an idea that actually came a little bit later, and it was directly inspired by something I had done on the internet before, this kind of cycle of life where we're following the subject and a series of match cuts, and the backgrounds keep changing and they get faster and faster. The added element was what you just said, which was the 2D animation drawings in the background. Um, and yeah, just had a really cool team. I have a designer friend who's brilliant, and I brought her on. Uh, and we just played with it. We wanted to feel kind of rugged and makeshift because that's kind of the world that Rudy's in. And then other than
Hmm.
that, the flip page animation and the
Yeah, that
class.
too.
Um, there's little sprinkles of animation, kind of where in places where they don't belong.
Hmm. Yeah. Was it hard casting somebody to be your mother?
Well, no, because there's my actual mother.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, so
I
the
didn't
woman who plays
realize
my mom is
that.
that's my actual mom. She's not an actor. She has no training. She has no professional experience,
Oh, she's
but
good, I think.
really good at really good at being herself on camera. So that was always a part of the vision.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So what was it like kind of managing the choreography in this, like the diner scene, the subway scenes, things like that? The playground. I love that scene.
Thank you. All those pieces, I think, really worked out in the end. That's attributed to the performers. I saw a
Uh-huh.
show called Stomp about 10 years ago, it's a very famous
Yes.
show,
Hmm.
and I met I met one of the head guys on that named Marivaldo dos Santos, who's also Brazilian. He's from Bahia. And I saw him on stage, and I saw how he choreographed and led this troupe. And I met with him afterwards, and I said, we have to do something together. Sure enough, he became the what we call rhythm supervisor in this film. And we hired something like 30 plus stompers or ex-stompers or street drum corps,
Uh-huh.
a group of people who can turn any situation or item into music, into an instrument. So whether it be the diner or the subway commuters or the park, um, it was really my executive music producer Jamie Rise, and this stomper slash rhythm director, Maribel dos Santos, who were very on the fly, were able to say, okay, we're at a diner, we have these props, let's all figure out how to turn it into music. And once we figured out the rhythm that they were doing using the fork or spoon or pot or pan or
Yeah.
broom, then we figured out how to stagger them and move them in a way that made sense for camera. But it was a collaboration. Some things
Yeah.
these guys just do naturally, and we would just follow it and adjust to them rather than the other way around. So it wasn't a set choreography necessarily. Every take was a little bit different.
Mm. Yeah, I was going to ask, was it a challenge with the sound mix? Because it has to be perfect because it's such a key to the film.
Yeah, it certainly was a challenge, but we knew it would be because we had done this kind of thing before. We recorded everything live, so a
Uh-huh.
lot of we think that most of the sound and music are produced or re-recorded later. We polished it a bit later, but we recorded everything live. So everything you're hearing in that
Wow.
diner or in the subway or in the fish market, there are at a certain times like more than 90 microphones catching every little
Wow.
bit of those items. So when you hear the fish slap or a broom sweep, that's the real sound. We didn't add that later.
Wow. That's really cool.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
There's a point where your character is basically dating two women at the same time. Were you worried that your character could be unlikable? Did that worry you at all?
Well, I think the character is a little bit unlikable by design.
Uh-huh.
I wanted the Rudy in the film to to really struggle uh, to find out who he is and dictate his own path, and that's frustrating to watch for audiences. Like
Right.
moments when you're watching, you're like, "What the hell are you doing?" Really making the wrong decision. Like Isabella's fantastic and encouraging. Why are you even in this self-perpetuated problem and chaos? And the answer is because that's real life. Sometimes we make poor decisions, and especially
Yeah.
in my experience, it took me a really long time to self-realize and mature. And I found that to be an interesting perspective, even if it meant not being the most likable person on the planet. He makes a lot of mistakes that ultimately only he can rectify. But more than anything, Isabella and Haley, more than romances, are meant to represent the different paths that Rudy can take in life.
Mhm.
You know, they were not based on necessarily two real women, more a culmination of people I've met in my life, but they
Yeah.
represent exactly that. And not only Isabella and Haley, but Maria, Rudy's mother. Each one of these women represents different ideologies, culturally, but
Yeah.
also different paths, because none of their paths are wrong. They're all
Right.
saying pretty valid, smart things. They're just not Rudy's.
Right.
Right? To answer your question, it wasn't a worry for me. It was kind of intentional.
Hmm. Yeah.
I want the audience to feel frustrated when Rudy's doing certain things. What the hell are you doing, man? And I wish I wish I could hear that voice when I was growing up.
Yeah. Well, and I like your mom says, we are not normal. That's a good moment.
True, we're not.
Yeah. Was it fun working with JB Smoove?
Oh, it was a blast. I mean, I'm a
Yeah.
massive fan of his, and I really wanted to capture some of that improv essence that he does so masterfully. He's a very rhythmic person, even though he's not performing.
Hmm.
or singing or playing and dancing, there's a lot of rhythm in the cadence of how he speaks. So we cross-shot our moments, and it was just improv after improv. Every take was different.
Nice. Nice. I like it when your character says, "When I'm with you, this is what I hear. This is your melody." That was a good moment. And uh, do you have a melody for Camilla?
Yeah, the melody you hear in the film was directly inspired by Camila, and it turned into the melody for Isabella. But I remember playing that on the piano when I was in Jersey during prep, and I sent her a video. I was like, "What
Yeah.
do you think of this?" Love that, and that right away became the theme of the film.
Yeah. Everything started to make sense because of you. That was a very swoon-worthy line.
That's the hopeless romantic in me.
Yes.
Well, the
Wow.
cool thing about that scene is that he says all these romantic things, and she says, "Nope, not
Yeah.
buying it."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really important because if she had taken Rudy back in that moment, I think all the unlikable qualities would have been tripled.
Right. Yeah. They would have been validated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
you got to pay for all this chaos that he set up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, if you were going to give, for the people listening, you were going to give them a pitch, check out the movie. You'll love it. What would you say? What would be your big pitch?
Like I said, check out Musica. It's my directorial debut. It's based on my life. It's a non-musical musical that follows the life of a young man who's trying to come to terms with his life, love, culture, relationships, all while experiencing synesthesia, which is this very bizarre and beautiful condition that I actually have, where sounds, everyday regular sounds, turn into music.
Well, I really enjoyed it. So, congratulations on making it. That is an incredible accomplishment. And it just made me happy. It was just a very happy film. So,
Well, that's pretty much the goal. So it makes me very happy to hear that. I haven't seen the last
yes.
of these kinds of films. That's certainly not for me. I'm just getting started.
All right. Well, that's what we like to hear. That's what we like to hear. I'll be first in line for sure for the next one.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, thanks so much. And I guess, do you have social media or anything like that? And people can
Yeah,
watch
it's
the
just
movie on Amazon Prime, right?
I can watch it on Prime Video. It's streaming now, Musica, and my social is just my name at Rudy Mancuso. But forget about my social. Watch the movie.
Yes, everybody should. We'll put the link in the description. People should check it out. And I'll put a link to my review as well. So, thanks so much. It was so great to meet you.
So nice to meet you. This is I hope not the last time we'll be speaking.
Yes, definitely. I'd like to thank Rudy for coming on the podcast. This was so much fun to get to talk with him. I just loved hearing his experience and talking about this movie because I really loved the movie and I just thought he was great. So let me know what you think of all the things we talked about. I would love to hear your thoughts. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast at Hallmarkies Pod, Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. It really helps a lot. And if you are watching it on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate that so much. Also have the Patreon group and merch store. So check that out. And thanks again to Rudy, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.